I've already covered my feed in peanut butter, as well as the old decks getting helped out with new Shrouded Fable cards come August 1st. Now it's all about the new archetypes you can expect from a set with just 64 cards in it. I don't know if you're as good at math as I am, but 64 is a fairly low number. As a result, I'll be combining the best new decks and the best new road decks from Shrouded Fable into one video. And if you look closely enough, you might not be able to tell which is which. Feet down, the best new deck coming in Shrouded Fable is PECHARUNT EX with Okidogi EX and Munkidori EX. Does that mean it's actually good, able to give other basic decks like Raging Bolt EX a run for their money? Probably not, but it's not my fault Shrouded Fable is lacking powerful new archetypes. I'm just trying to make that sweet, sweet YouTube ad revenue, baby. I've been following the Japanese results for Shrouded Fable closely, and the wins for PECHARUNT EX and friends have shriveled up faster than my toes in a hot tub. In fact, in the last 10 days of the format, it had 4 wins out of like 100 tournaments. This is the most recent winning list, which includes a few cards not typically seen with PECHARUNT EX, Unfair Stamp, and Lost City. Because nearly every PECHARUNT deck relies so heavily on Janine's secret technique, which doesn't draw you cards, having Unfair Stamp as your A-Spec is a great idea. Not only does it refresh your hand to 5, but it puts your opponent down to 2 cards. And Lost City helps against decks like Gardevoir EX that recycle their minions. But more realistically, this is what you can expect from a typical PECHARUNT EX list. There's a 2-2-2 spread of the EX PECHARUNT, Okidogi, and Munkidori. You could go 3 Okidogi and 1 Munkidori instead, along with everything you need to succeed playing a deck that's a weaker version of Raging Bolt EX. The strategy is simple. Go second like you would with other basic heavy decks, then do everything in your power to take big one-hit KOs every single turn. PECHARUNT EX is similar to Raging Bolt EX in that it uses a supporter to power up its attackers. Except where Sawda's Vitality takes energy from the discard pile, Janine takes it from the deck. And if you do get energy in the discard pile, there's 4 Dark Patch to accelerate to bench Darkness Pokemon. And thanks to PECHARUNT's ability, you can easily put a bench Darkness Pokemon into the active spot, poisoning it in the process, which is exactly what Okidogi EX wants. If Okidogi EX is poisoned, its attack does 260 damage. Slap on a Binding Mochi, now it's 300. Because your Pokemon will suffer from poison damage quite a bit, the deck runs the baby Munkidori. This way you can take some damage counters from your own Pokemon and put them on your opponent's Pokemon. And with Okidogi EX topping out at 300 damage in a world where Charizard EX has 330 hit points, moving those 3 extra damage counters makes a huge difference. Other attackers in the deck are Munkidori EX and Roaring Moon EX. Munkidori is quite weak compared to Okidogi, dealing just 190 damage. But if you have PECHARUNT EX in play, it only gives up a single prize card when it's knocked out by damage. And Roaring Moon has been a mainstay in every Japanese list. It just offers up an easy way to one-hit KO any of your opponent's Pokemon, though you do put 200 damage on yourself as a result. Elsewhere, the one Fezandipiti EX draws you 3 cards if one of your Pokemon was knocked out during your opponent's last turn. This deck struggles with drawing cards. Fezandipiti helps alleviate that. Same with Mew EX when you have a low hand size, and Squawkabilly EX on turn 1 when you want to get off to a fast start. In terms of flex cards, there's Morpeko and Darkrai V-Star. Morpeko helps you deal with Mimikyu and can take out some low HP basics while preserving your energy. Darkrai V-Star helps against Noivern EX, giving you an evolutionified attacker. Additionally, its V-Star power gets you back any 2 item cards, effectively giving you access to 6 Dark Patches. For other trainers to consider, Town Store gets your Binding Mochi out of the deck because the Pokemon Company are jerk faces and made tools separate from items, so Pokestop is more heartbreaking than ever in this deck. Prime Catcher over Secret Box might not be a bad idea, giving you more gust, but Secret Box just fills so many holes. And lastly, Bloodmoon Ursaluna EX as a free late-game attacker, and Enhanced Hammer or Temple of Sinnoh to bump a Mist Energy, protecting someone from Roaring Moon EX's one-hit KO attack. While it will barely win any games on PTCGL, the second best new deck coming in Shrouded Fable is headlined by the baby Bloodmoon Ursaluna. For 2 fighting and a colorless, it does 100 base damage plus 30 more for each damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon. To help get that energy on itself, whenever you slap Ursaluna from hand onto the bench, you can attach 2 fighting energy from hand directly to it. So we've solved one problem. What about the other? While you could use something like Froslass or Munkidori or Vengeful Punch or Dusclops and Dusknoir or Glamora to help get damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon, the best partner still appears to be Iron Valiant EX. You use a bunch of switch cards in tandem with Future Booster, allowing you to add damage counters to whatever Pokemon you want. If you're bad at math, don't worry. I'm here to give you a handy cheat sheet. The most important numbers are 4 damage counters means you're taking a one-hit KO against a 220 hit point Pokemon, and 6 damage counters means you're taking a one-hit KO against a 340 hit point Pokemon. This is how you should build Ursaluna Iron Valiant come Shrouded Fable, which is almost exactly the same list I showed you a month ago. Yes, there's a lot of 2-prize liabilities, but it can get off to a great start turn 1, beating off those big basic EXs. Since you need the energy in hand when you bench Ursaluna, Energy Retrieval, Earthen Vessel, and Nightly Stretcher are all super important, with Fezandipiti EX helping you draw cards each turn. While I expect it to definitely function and have some fun moments destroying unprepared Zard players, Ursaluna likely won't ever be more than a tier 3 deck that you can't bear to play more than a few times. If the Iron Valiant build doesn't tickle your bare feet, I've got a spicy one here for you from Japan. I'll play several different lists on stream after Shrouded Fable launches, but this one with the baby Ting-Lu does seem to have a bit of potential. Since I'm too lazy to create a fresh version on Limitless, here's the image from PokeComic. The combo with Ursaluna and Ting-Lu is that Ting-Lu spreads 30 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon, though you do have to discard a stadium to make it happen. So long as they don't have Manaphy in play, that's not too terribly difficult to pull off. And you also have the Vengeful Punch to rack up more damage, provided they KO whoever it's attached to. Then there's Lana's Aid to recycle Ursaluna, Hassle to keep churning through your deck, Letter of Encouragement to find energy, and Grant to boost the damage your fighting types deal. Again, not a competitive list, but fun with a splash of potential. Froslass is an insanely powerful card, able to rack up the damage on ability Pokemon faster than you can subscribe to me. And if you look at the projected tier list for Shrouded Fable decks, pretty much all of them rely heavily on abilities, especially if they all start playing Fezandipiti EX. Munkidori also combos super well with Froslass, able to damage itself, then put those damage counters onto your opponent's Pokemon. But it's been lacking a really good partner. Binda gets blocked by Manaphy and only does 10 damage. With Shrouded Fable, we finally get someone who can spread damage counters like I spread cheeks, Yveltal. For each of your opponent's Pokemon that have damage counters on them, Yveltal puts 2 damage counters on them. While it is stopped by Jirachi, which is seeing less play than ever before, Manaphy is completely powerless to stop it. Admittedly, 2 damage counters is fairly weak, so you will have to rely on Froslass and Munkidori to help KO higher HP Pokemon. And if their Pokemon don't have abilities, life gets tougher, though it's not impossible to win. Here's one of the ways you can play Yveltal with Shrouded Fable. Sure, you could be conservative and play a couple of them, but that's what losers do. We go hard, for Yveltal all day, baby. I freely admit that this list isn't optimal. It will require a lot of whacking off to determine the best way to play Yveltal, but this is a great starting off point. I'm so paranoid about the lack of card draw that I went with Unfair Stamp over Hyper Aroma, meaning that it's up to Great Ball and Irida to find Froslass. Everything else is fairly straightforward. Cleffa helps you draw cards early, Mawile can trap a Pokemon in the active spot while Froslass paints damage counters, Bloodmoon Ursaluna EX can deal 240 damage for free at the end of a game, and I overloaded on supporters going with 12 total. Why? Well, unfortunately, due to Froslass's ability, you can't really play any draw Pokemon like Fezandipiti or Bibarel. Sure, if you really wanted to, you could play Radiant Zarina along with the draw Pokemon, but then you're wasting 2 bench slots that should be taken up by Froslass or Munkidori. Other options include Radiant Charizard as a late game attacker, though you will have to play either Luminous or Fire Energy. Dark Patch to accelerate energy to Yveltal while you manually attach to Munkidori rather than relying on experience share. A Glalie to give you a strong attacker at any point, though again you need Luminous, which isn't a bad thing as it allows Munkidori to attack for 60 and confuse. And there's even someone like Iron Jugulus who can spread 50 damage to 3 of your opponent's Pokemon provided they have damage counters on them. Or Mimikyu to take big one-hit KOs against non-ability Pokemon like Raging Bolt EX. Because this deck never really did anything in Japan, take it and make it your own. I am merely a guide. I can't do the walking for you, though I can encourage you to be barefoot while you do. Best? Definitely not. New? Absolutely. I may have failed grade 6 math, but even I know that 50% is a pass, so Kingdra EX gets a feature in this video. But like a petite feature. My advice for Kingdra EX is the same as it's almost always been, don't waste your time or your credits building it. But if the PTCGL devs decide to give it away for free on the Shrouded Fable Battle Pass, I'd feel like an idiot for not at least showing how it could work. If you watch my previous video on Kingdra, this is the exact same list I showed off there. Your whole goal is to get a Kingdra EX up and running on turn 2, all while pitching some of your Evolved Water Pokemon, mainly Baxcalibur, into the discard pile, so you can put them directly onto the bench. Everything in here is designed to make that happen while also not completely screwing you over in the late game. Kingdra EX's claim to fame is its first attack, King's Order. For a single water energy, you can put up to 3 water Pokemon from your discard pile directly onto the bench. So you'll want to grab 2 Baxcalibur if you can, plus another Kingdra EX so you have a backup attacker. Then by putting 6 energy on Kingdra, you can deal 350 damage and one-shot everything meaningful and standard. But as players in Japan quickly discovered, Kingdra EX is far too slow. You're not doing anything turn 1 with this deck. Your first turn is all about setting up, trying to put multiple Horsey down while you prepare for a turn 2 Irida to grab a rare candy in Kingdra EX. But even that's not enough, you still have to have the water Pokemon in the discard pile to put them into play. So your second turn is basically just another setup turn. And if you're facing something like, say, Raging Bolt EX, when Kingdra EX can finally do something come turn 3, they may have already taken 4 prizes and the game's basically over already. I know my hate towards Kingdra EX may seem unjust, but just like Pokemon TCG Live, I had high hopes before it released. Then it came out and kicked me in the Pokeballs and I've never recovered. You're much better off just playing Chien-Pao EX with a Fezandipiti EX when Shrouded Fable launches, because like the energy retrieval, it's far superior. That being said, if you're crazy, here's the only Kingdra deck list to win anything in Japan over the past month. It plays 4 Snorlax doll to try and buy you the time needed to get set up, a ton of discard, and a couple of alternate attackers in Feraligatr and Alolan Vulpix V-Star. If your opponent is stun locked at the sight of seeing a Snorlax doll in front of them on turn 1, you might win some games. Otherwise, prepare for disappointment. Okay, so I know that Magcargo EX isn't a new card, but get ready, I'm about to perform a crazy magic trick. Boom! See, this isn't a Magcargo EX deck, this is a Nighttime Academy deck that just so happens to play Magcargo. But let's be honest, you all forgot Magcargo EX was a thing. I forgot it was a thing, so let's pretend like this is all brand new, shall we? For 2 fire and a colorless, Magcargo's Ground Burn does 140 base damage. Absolutely terrible on a stage 1-2 prizer. But the effect of Ground Burn discards the top card of each player's deck. For each energy discarded this way, it does 140 more damage. So that 140 can turn into either 280 or 420 depending on how things go. The easiest thing for you to control is putting an energy on top of your own deck. So right before launching Ground Burn, you put a fire energy from your hand on top of your deck using Nighttime Academy, guaranteeing 280 damage. And if you want to get really spicy, play Team Star Grunt. This puts an energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon on top of their deck. So if you're facing Dragapult EX or Charizard EX, now you can one-shot them without having to rely on Maximum Belt. The biggest issue facing Magcargo is the energy. Since you have to rely on Nighttime Academy, that means you can't play Magma Basin, which means you have to get creative. This is all of the ways you can accelerate or protect your energy in your Magcargo deck. Mel is great as it attaches an energy from the discard pile and draws you up to 6 if one of your Pokemon was just knocked out. Experience Share keeps any energy you might lose in play, Slugma's attack attaches an energy from the discard pile to itself, and Energy Sticker is the devil. Ultimately, this is probably the safest way to build Magcargo with Shrouded Fable, which is based off of a Japanese list I found. It's fairly straightforward, running a 2-tube barrel for continued card draw, Radiant Charizard for an easy 250 on a single prizer, Hyper Aroma as the A-Spec to get 3 stage 1s, though Maximum Belt and Unfair Stamp are other good considerations, and all those energy cards I talked about previously. Although Night Stretcher can get a Pokemon back from the discard pile, you'll mostly be using it for the energy so you can loop Nighttime Academy plays. While that list had a lot of consistency, there's so many other ways you can make Magcargo EX better in your head. Rotom V gives you 3 cards at the end of your first turn, plus access to 4 Sealstone. Suavid and Cleffa are major liabilities in a Dragapult EX world, but they both help smooth out your draws. Colress's Tenacity can find you Nighttime Academy and an energy, a copy of Magma Basin early on isn't a terrible idea to get up to 2 energy on the field, and Arven with Turbo Energized can also put 2 energy on the field early. And for my final suggestions, Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking can stack your deck, Energy Retrieval is a less versatile but arguably better Nightly Stretcher, and the Snack Seat Morpeko lets you get a peek at what the top card of your deck is. Finding the perfect 60 card list for Nighttime Academy with Magcargo is going to take a lot of trial and error, and all for a deck that probably won't ever be very good. For my final deck, I was thinking about covering Weavile with Power Hourglass, which I totally came up with on my own and wasn't pointed towards by a viewer on stream. But it's far too similar to the Articuno Paralysis deck with Munkidori. And besides, a single copy of PECHARUNT EX in a Darkness deck completely obliterates any hope of a locked deck. No, instead I'm going to show you Copperajah with Neutral Center. Don't get too excited. This is the epitome of a rogue deck. Copperajah has one strategy, and if it fails, the deck is never going to win. But if you get the right matchup and things don't go squawks up, you'll ruin someone's day. And in the end, isn't that what we all play Pokemon cards for? Copperajah's ability prevents your opponent from playing a stadium, provided it's in the active spot. Neutral Center prevents all damage done to non-rulebox Pokemon by your opponent's V and EX Pokemon. The main issue is going to be Lost Vacuum. Well, Lost Vacuum and gusting up a Pokemon not named Copperajah, then playing a counter stadium. But let's worry about Lost Vacuum. Due to my paranoia, I want to play one each of Airy, Misfortune Sisters, and Xerosic's Machinations, all of which can help deal with lost vacuums. One of the saving graces with Copperajah is that it has good stats. 200 hit points on a stage 1 single prizer ain't bad, and you can even bump it to 300 with a luxurious cape at the cost of giving up an extra prize. Then there's the possibility of dealing 230 damage. The 4 energy requirement is rough though, meaning you can't just slap a reversal energy on the bad boy and call it a day. That's where Metang helps greatly, as well as Heavy Baton, which can pass back any energy you loaded onto a Copperajah. Despite Copperajah's potential on paper, I don't think it's going to win too many games without Neutral Center at its disposal. This is a list that PokeComic cooked up. It's super boring and doesn't make you question the creator's sanity. No, you want crazy? And I got the crazy for you right here, pal. Yeah, what do you think about this monstrosity? I'll freely admit that I may have blacked out while building this and don't quite know what happened. But if it wasn't for the insane among us, do you think Flamin' Hot Cheetos would exist? Anyways, the deck. Yeah, okay, it may not be too dissimilar from the other one, but they differ on one key point. I don't play Colress's Tenacity. Because you can't recycle Neutral Center, you get one shot. So I'm thinking you save it until the end of the game when they're out of resources. You use Mimikyu early to masterfully bait out their non-EX and V attacker, then knock it out with Copperajah the following turn. Obviously everything works out perfectly in my head. The true test will be on PTCGL where dreams go to Diancie. I did hold myself back a bit here. I wanted to go down to a 2-2 Metang and maximize the Copperajah, while also including either Cleffa or a 1-1 Basculegion. Oh, and you could remove the Metang entirely and go with a Turbo Energized build that plays Mimikyu, Ogerpon EX, and maybe even Noivern EX for extra walling power. If you didn't know coming into this video, you definitely know now. Shrouded Fable is a massively disappointing set when it comes to brand new decks. It makes sense. Shrouded Fable is a special set mostly comprised of cards that they rip from Stellar Crown, which comes out just 42 days afterwards. Regardless, I've included lists for all of these new decks in the description, which you can copy and paste into live. If you have any ideas for fun new Shrouded Fable decks, let everyone know in the comments. And stay tuned for more Shrouded Fable details as we march closer to August 1st, including news on the Battle Pass free decks which should be revealed this week.